There's a rush to produce because we're racing toward quarterly numbers, half numbers, whatever your organization is organized as. But also there's a skill piece to it, which is being able to quickly pattern find and find the trends in information and then connect that to something that would be important, potentially important to a client, a prospective client.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales, marketing, and business. Join Bryn Tillman and me, Bob Woods, as we each bring you the best tips and strategies our guests are teaching their clients, so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Making Sales Social. I am so excited about our guest today. I shared a stage with her at Outbound, and can I just tell you, I had more notes from her presentation than any presentation I've ever been to. Absolutely brilliant. Amy Franko helps mid-market organizations improve growth results through sales strategy, advisory, and skill development programs. Her book, The Modern Seller, is an Amazon bestseller, and she is recognized by LinkedIn as a top sales voice. Amy, welcome to the show.
It is so great to be here, and I love sharing the stage with you too. That was so much fun, and we need to do it again.
Okay.
All right.
I'm in.
We'll figure it out.
I'm in. That's awesome. Well, I ask all of our guests before we get started one question, which is, what does making sales social mean to you?
To me, it means in today's day and age, finding ways to, in an age of technology, so much information, AI, like everything that we're talking about, it's finding the ways to be really intentional, to build rapport, and then create value for a long-term relationship. And it's a broad definition because there's so many ways that you can do it. And as sales professionals and sales leaders, that's part of our role to figure out how of that. But it's creating better relationships in a world of lots of tech and lots of information.
I love that. And that's a new definition we haven't heard. And we've been doing this for over 300 episodes. So that's awesome. I love it. I love it. The biggest topic right now in sales is how do we authentically bring in AI? Now, you have another AI acronym, advisory intelligence. And that really kind of brings in how you think of sales personalization. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, yes, I think about using things like artificial intelligence to create advisory intelligence, AI to create AI, if you will. I think we can use both of those things to create better personalization, which then ties back to your original question. How do we make this more social and build better relationships? So to me, sales personalization it's two things. First, it's your personal plan to create success. Elite sellers create a personal plan to be successful outside of the sales quota that they've been assigned, outside of the requirements of their company. But the other part, which I think is probably where we'll go down the path today, is with our clients and prospects. And that's our ability to basically take a territory or a vertical, find patterns quickly, and then use those patterns to create better interactions with our prospects and our clients. If we can nail that, because part of our job is sifting through lots of information and making sense of it for our clients and prospects, if we can do that and turn it into something of interest for that other person, and thinking of that person as a person, not just a buyer or as a decision maker, being able to do that well will help any seller be successful.
I love that. And I love that you said that I am doing my very best to stop calling these people leads.
Leads, prospects, targets, decision makers, buyers. I use the same vernacular, and I think all of us probably do, but like in our minds, these are people. And that's part of personalization, is interrupting that pattern.
Yeah. And it's interesting because with social and LinkedIn and websites and the ability to like research we have qualified them or pre-qualified them in based on all of these factors. But one of the factors is that we rarely use is who are they as a human?
Yeah.
So, and that to me is so important. So I love what you're saying. I feel like that personalization is what will get the curious salespeople to truly be successful. If they're not curious, they're going to keep going after leads.
Yeah, that's a great point, which is that the curiosity and the genuine interest, if we come from that place, that kind of naturally leads us to be willing to take the extra step, to do the little bit of extra research or homework that we need to do.
Yeah, so I love that. So I think that kind of bridges to my next question, which is, why do so many salespeople struggle with personalization?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of different paths that we can go down here. So if I maybe parse this into two paths, the first path is kind of the bigger picture, the way a lot of organizations are structured and the quarterly results, the large territories, verticals that a lot of sales professionals cover strategically can make personalization a challenge. That's a big thing to solve. But if I take that and think about the sales professional themselves, it's typically time, because something like this does take more time. I would say there's a rush to produce because we're racing toward quarterly numbers, half numbers, whatever your organization is organized as. But also there's a skill piece to it, which is being able to quickly pattern find and find the trends in information, and then connect that to something that would be important, potentially important to a client, a prospective client. So those are things I've learned about myself going along the personalization journey, and I do see those same patterns in clients I work with or prospects I'm talking to.
That's so interesting. One of the things I see in that they struggle is they think fast is better than right.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I just throw enough on the wall,
Something will stick.
But is it exactly what you want to stick to the wall, right? Like, so
Yeah.
one of the tenets that we promote is slow down your outreach to speed up your outcome.
That I love that. And it works. It's true.
Yeah. And that personalization, I think, is so important. And, one of the things I do is I look at my inbound and what am I responding to? Because I get probably 400 emails a day. It's overwhelming, but I do respond to some. So when I do, I'm like, what about this made me respond? And it's somewhere along the line, I felt like they understood me.
Yeah. And especially if someone's reaching out to you, there's a request. It's I want to talk with you about a product or a solution eventually. Yeah. There has to be something in there that says, ooh, this is worth having a conversation and investing the time to do it.
Yeah. And for me, as a consumer, the personalization is I understand the challenge you have right now. Not I have a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I understand, I mean, it's assumed if you're going to talk about the challenge that you have that solution.
Yeah.
But that's what I tend to resonate with from a personalization perspective. I just thought I'd throw that out. But there are many, 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 many different elements around personalization, right? And that's one. What are some other ways or elements that salespeople can go out into the world to identify that they can use in the personalization side of their communication?
Yeah. And as I was thinking about this question, I'm going to look at it through the lens of like a specific vertical or an opportunity maybe that someone's pursuing, but we can take it in a lot of different directions. When I think about a challenge that somebody needs to solve, and if we're going to determine whether or not I'm the right fit or it's something that I want to, I'm in a position to help them solve, there are typically 5 things that I'm trying to figure out. And you could take this in any opportunity, any vertical, you can apply it in a lot of different ways. The first is I'll go back to that advisory intelligence, which is what's my level of knowledge about the industry, the organization, the individual, to your point, that leads me down the path that we could work together. How can I solve their problem? Do I know that I can do that? There's also the specifics of understanding opportunity quality, which is the second thing. There does have to be quality there in order to pursue it, which comes back to your point about slowing things down to ultimately speed them up. We pursue a lot of opportunities that aren't the right fit or poor quality because we're trying to do quantity. And if we look at quality, we'll be able to better gauge and win the opportunity. The third piece of personalization is understanding the relationship ecosystems inside and outside of the organization with that particular individual or the group that might be looking to buy what it is that I bring to the table. The fourth is a compelling solution. We can't win without a compelling solution. We often get there too quickly, like we're thinking about it, and because we know we've seen this a million times, right? But we do ultimately have to get to something compelling that makes sense to the person and actually solves the problem they're looking to solve. And then the last thing is understanding what the commitments are that are needed. What do I need to get from you, and what do you need to get from me in order for us to decide that this is the right thing to pursue? So those are the five that I focus on in a discrete opportunity or in a territory or vertical.
You said something magical and it kind of just was so fast. I'm going to come back to this.
You gonna slow it down?
Yeah, no, but it's a point that I want to emphasize, that I think, like my mic, every time I hear you, there's a mic drop or two, right? Compelling is not what you think is compelling. It's what they think is compelling. So if you are going at this too soon, it is not necessarily compelling for them. So I'm not articulating the aha moment that I'm feeling exactly. But the idea is you cannot call it compelling, that only they can.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of an example. This just happened to me a couple weeks ago. So there's a potential client that I'm having some conversations with. And this is an example of slowing it down to speed it up, because we are kind of we were having several conversations and getting to a point where they wanted to see a solution of some kind. I'm okay with not having all the information to put together ideas to discuss, but I also try not to go into the conversation running on the assumption that this is the thing we're going to decide on. There's likely going to be some changes. So when we went into this conversation, it's what I had provided, the ideas I had provided weren't quite hitting the mark, kind of to your point. Like we had kind of rushed to get to this, which, sometimes that happens, but everybody was good, the client included, in kind of slowing it down. Let's do a little bit more homework together, and then let's come back and fine tune it. And I actually fine tuned it with the client live. Then I went back, put it into a proposal, represented it, if you will. But we had to slow some things down, and you have to be able to have that personalization and that rapport relationship to do that. Otherwise, you're just trying to push something through that isn't going to be compelling.
Oh, I love that. So another one of our tenets is detach from what the prospect is worth to you and attach to what you are worth to the prospect.
Yeah.
So don't look at what is our proposal going to look like from my commission perspective, but what is this going to look like from a solution perspective? And what you did in working live with them to come up with that solution, they've already agreed to it before they get that proposal in a way.
Yeah.
Like at this point, they said, these are the things we need. Yes. So you're going to eliminate your negotiation. You're going to, to me, Amy, that is so friggin' brilliant. Like, even if I think that's something that we should try to do in our sales, even if we don't have to slow it down. The idea that they participated in what we're going to propose as the delivery, that takes away so many objections, takes away so much negotiation that might happen, takes away even some price objection, because chances are you got the ROI of this in that conversation too.
Yes. And your comments just jogged a thought, which is probably somebody watching or listening to this right now might be saying, that is great, but I have this huge territory, this huge vertical, whatever that I'm calling into. How do I take that and make it scalable, make it a little bit easier to execute? So if I kind of pull back the curtain on it, I have templated approaches that I use. I'm always looking for ways to make things more efficient, but the key is that efficiency can't be at the cost of still making it personal. So even though I have specific elements and specific approaches that I use each and every time, I personalize those approaches. So I kind of balance that efficiency with the personalization. So for somebody who's asking, like, well, how do you do that? I build processes and templates and things that I use over and over again, but I really try to not, it's a goal. I want somebody to think that that was designed specifically for them, because it really was, but I'm putting processes in place to make it simpler for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it reinventing the wheel every time is not personalization, right? Like
It's exhausting.
And I think having a process and a framework, it can also A/B test what's working and what's not working. Like if you are personalizing everything from scratch, you can't test what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't improve because you don't know why that one worked if you didn't have a framework or a process. So I love that you do that. That's
And
fact.
yeah, and back to the pattern piece, every time I have an interaction with a prospect or a client, I go through this process, I learn something or I identify a pattern that I can use for the next time. So it's every interaction, every scenario builds on itself, and you can pull a pattern from it that you could use for the next time.
I love that you call it a pattern. I never heard that used, and that's what it is. I always say framework, but a pattern is so visual, right? I love that. Oh,
And the pattern might be, how did I create it? What was my thought process? The pattern might be, how many conversations did it take for us to get to, the end result? So looking for those patterns, we can kind of interrupt the ones that don't work, but keep doing and amplify the ones that are getting you to where you want to go.
yeah. In the olden days, we would say, stop, start, and continue.
Yeah. Something that you said earlier, I want to come back around to, which is that one of your tenets about like slowing down
Yeah.
or
Slow down your outreach to speed up your outcome.
yes, because if we slow down our outreach and we're more thoughtful about it, we might have 2 or 5 or 10 great conversations in a day, depending on what your role is in an organization. I'd rather have 2 or 3 really excellent conversations than 5 to 10 mediocre ones. And that's a different way of thinking. And so that slowing down can be really hard for us to do because we are just conditioned to move quickly. So intentionally slowing down, that's it. Like you really have to make yourself do it.
Yeah. And I'm the reverse of whatever a procrastinator is, because it makes me nuts. It's like I constantly go, I gotta get it done, gotta get it done. So sometimes I do things way too fast because it's the check mark on my to-do list that rewards me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can relate.
Yeah. So that's a good lesson for me. So I love that. So I know you've talked a lot about the different types of personal selling strategies. Can you just give us a little taste of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I think about the different scenarios that we are presented with, and if I look for the patterns in my own client work, there are typically 3 types of sales scenarios that I come up against the most. There's a transactional sale, there's a solution sale, and then there's a consultative sale. And counterintuitively, each of them can have their elements of personalization. But what I have found helpful and will offer up as a strategy for those watching or listening, take a look at your last few opportunities that you worked on. What elements of those opportunities were like transactional or solution oriented? which of those were really consultative. It's the consultative ones that give us the opportunity for personalization. But if we can look for the ways in a solution sale or a transactional sale, we can find ways to personalize it, even though they might be more transactional or move more quickly. So that would be what I would offer up as a way to look at your sales: consultative, solution, or transactional.
I love that. And I think all of us could hit, even no matter how complex or simple your sale is. I think there are different times in the sales cycle where you're hitting, it kind of can overlap a little times.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of a client right now that I've worked with for a long time. And when you've worked with a client for a long time, I think there's that risk of it becoming transactional, like you're just writing a new statement of work every year or every 6 months or for the project, whatever. And the realization that I had was, gosh, I really could do more to personalize this relationship with the client. It's a big organization. There's probably lots of opportunity. So what I did was, and they had some change in leadership. So I took that as an opportunity to really re-engage with the leaders in the organization and spend some time with them. And it might be conversations like this in Zoom. Occasionally it's a breakfast or a lunch. But that has helped me to not only build better relationships there and take the transaction out of what we were doing. We'll find more ways to work together. Just because, like to your point, I slowed down the outreach and now I'm seeing the fruits of that slowing down.
Wow, we covered a lot. And as we're wrapping this up, what is one question I should have asked you that I didn't?
Probably one thing that we can talk about is what's maybe a tangible next step that somebody could take along the lines of personalization. So of course, in my style, I always have two. I never just have one, Bryn. I always have two.
I love it.
But I would say one is to just look at your upcoming sales conversations for the week. I think the sales conversation is such opportunity to personalize and find a way to tailor that conversation. And if possible, set aside some time in the agenda with that person at the end. It could be 5 minutes to talk about something related but different. That's a way to personalize. And then secondly, we all send lots of email messages and text messages to prospects and clients all day, every day. But find a way to personalize that communication. And personalizing doesn't have to be personal information. I want to clarify that. It can be something that personalizes the challenge or the problem that they have or the industry that they're in. So it's professional personalization, if you will.
Yeah, I'm going to just throw out my little LinkedIn tip is check out their profile. What content are they engaging in sharing? Who do they follow? There's so many ways for us to find out what matters to them and just kind of sneak that into the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Every time I have a conversation with somebody, that is oftentimes one of the first places that I go, because that's going to give me just a window into what's interesting to them. So absolutely.
I love this. Amy, you're brilliant. I just adore you. I think any sales organization that is looking to improve needs to have a conversation with you.
Brand,
so
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I mean it. Like
I know, and I really do appreciate that. Thank you for saying that.
So now they're listening. They're like, okay, how do I get in touch with Amy? How do they get in touch with you?
So 2 ways, of course, LinkedIn, Amy Franko on LinkedIn, or amyfranko.com, Franko with a K.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And to all our listeners, when you're out and about, don't forget to make your sales social.
Don't miss an episode. Visit socialsaleslink.com/podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. Register for free resources at linkedinlibrary.com. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.